You're watching Inside the Right. I'm joined by my co host, longtime conservative operative, Tim Miller, who's here to give us an inside look on what's happening on the right. So, Tim, let's talk about Trump's proposed cabinet picks. We've seen reporting that vice presidential picks could include Tucker Carlson, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Carrie Lake, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Byron Donalds. Help me understand. If you've already got your base, which Trump does, and you need those suburban moms and independents, how can you double down on the crazy with choices like this?
Well, Trump's looking for first and foremost his loyalty, I think, out of this VP. I think he has a different calculation. As crazy as it might seem, you get inside Trump's head, and I think that right now he feels like he's going to beat Joe Biden. And so he's mostly interested in having people around him that will be totally loyal and subservient to him and all of his, anti-constitutional, anti-rule of law retribution efforts. And so if you go and pick somebody that, you don't have that trust with that might appeal more to, suburban moms, you're going to end up in Mike Pence zone again. Not that Mike Pence appealed to conservative moms, but that in that case, he was trying to appeal to a different group. And so I think that this time his lesson is I need a loyalist. And I think that's why those names that you just listed out are going to be on there. I think that there are other people that are, maybe more of a hybrid, people that had been in the past more moderate, but then have kind of turned MAGA and are trying to suck up to him in order to prove that they're loyal. I'd look at Elise Stefanik and Nancy Mace out of South Carolina recently. You can see her kind of angling for this. So maybe he tries to kind of split the baby a little bit, but I don't think I don't think that he's worried about getting to suburban women. I think that he's worried about, having a VP that will stand by him no matter what he does.
So do you think the strategy here for the Trump campaign is just to lean into turning out the base and not really expanding their tent and then just hoping that turnout is depressed on the left?
Yeah, I think that they're turning out their base is their number one priority. Absolutely, getting maximizing the amount of votes. And then I think that the other group that they're looking at, and I don't know if this is going to work, right? But traditionally these swing voters have been what you're talking about, suburban women, to a lesser degree, suburban men. They're the security moms in 2004, and a lot of them went for Joe Biden in 2020. Um, I think that the Trump team is looking at a different swing vote, which is non-college, working class, Black and Hispanic voters. And I don't know if that's going to work. It hasn't worked in the past, really, particularly with Black voters. They have made some inroads with Hispanic voters, and so I think that he doesn't feel like, or his team doesn't feel like that demo is going to care as much about the threats to democracy and, abortion rights and things like that in the way that suburban folks do, the traditional suburban swing voters. And I think especially if you're thinking about working class men, mostly working class Black and Hispanic men. So from that standpoint, picking a Byron Donalds, a kind of populist Black congressperson that folks don't know a lot about of might fit that strategy. Again, I'm just telling you what I think they are thinking. I'm kind of skeptical that will work, but I think they care more about that demo this time than like the suburban swing vote.
Right. A lot of those names that have been floated, and there were two articles floating around. There was an Axios article and a Wall Street Journal article, but a lot of the names floated around are big personalities. And I'm curious how Trump would reconcile his need to be the center of attention with the fact that these people are also very accustomed to being the center of attention. So wouldn't that
Yeah.
pose something of a problem for Trump?
Well, I think as long as they're the center of attention, they're sucking up to him. It's fine. Carrie Lake likes being the center of attention, but she just likes lavishing praise on her man Donald. So I think that'd be okay. Tucker is another name that got thrown out, I believe, in the Axios article, and there was a leak that Melania thinks that Tucker would be a good pick, which is just so kind of weird. This is despite the fact this being inside the right, I can't get inside Melania's head. I have no idea what's going on in there, but Tucker probably fits that bill of being too big of a star, that would take away from Trump in a way that's something he wouldn't feel comfortable with. And as far as the second, the lower the cabinet officials, I think that's very interesting. So you had this initial Axios story that had all of these very extreme names. I mean, Tucker's in there. You had Stephen Miller. You have this guy, Mike Davis, who tweeted recently that he wanted to put me in the women's gulag with Mehdi Hassan. Like you have all these like weird characters from conservative internet world that people are like, we're going to make that guy the Secretary of State. And I think that there will be some of that. Like, I think that Trump likes to reward some of these firebrands or certain things. But then I think that then you had this Wall Street Journal leak, which is like, here's some boring white guys that are just going to execute on the nationalist plans and who don't tweet and who you don't know from Fox and Friends, right? Or you don't know from Newsmax or even crazier outlets. And I think that that probably, and it's based on some conversations I had with people in MAGA world, that like Trump will kind of want to blend that. And so, you don't, he doesn't want somebody that's going to outshine him too much, but he does want, I think that he liked, like obviously Sarah Huckabee Sanders, you mentioned at the top, like she has her own brand, but she doesn't outshine him, and Stephen Miller, right? Like he's crazy and far right and people know him, but he doesn't outshine Trump, right? So I think that he's going to do a little of both.
Well, another eye-opening choice was Jeffrey Clark for a top Justice Department slot. This is the guy who Trump wanted to install as Attorney General during the effort to overturn the election, which prompted DOJ leadership to threaten to resign en masse if he was installed in that position. So, what does it say about the prospect of the U.S. sliding into autocracy in a second Trump term if this guy's name is being floated?
Super dangerous, right? And I think that especially at the kind of deputy level across the government where you don't need to get Senate approval, Trump's going to be looking for people like that. Kash Patel is another name that people come up with who was a big operator that was trying to help with the coup attempt last time. In our first video of the series, we talked about that New York Young Republicans meeting. Jeff Clark was there, right? And it was one of the people that was there. So I think it's telling that there are like multiple criminal co-defendants in the Georgia trial that have been hanging around Trump and are now kind of floated for these sorts of jobs. And I think that when you have somebody like Clark, like, look, this guy was an environmental lawyer. Like, he's not somebody that you would ever be considered for one of these jobs. But since a lot of A, B, C list conservatives, whatever you think about them ideologically, aren't going to want to work for Trump because they don't want to be subpoenaed. They don't want to get the Rudy Giuliani treatment. You're going to get these folks like Clark who are not are not constitutional scholars, are not top level appointees that you would have had in the past in Republican administrations, and they're people that are going to get these jobs because they are pledging loyalty to Trump, and that because they would be willing to go after Trump's political enemies, and so yeah, I think Clark's name being floated out there is just one particularly gross example of what is representative of the types of people that Trump will be looking for. That's pretty concerning.
Well, do you think that having this list of extremists floating around is going to do anything to push away those bulwark-style Republicans like you who are teetering on the edge? Well, not to say that you're teetering on the edge, but those.
Yeah, I'm not teetering, but yeah, I hear you.
I think you've fallen off the edge. But do you think that it will do anything to push those like soft Republicans off the edge, or do you think that this stuff is just so nebulous that regular people likely wouldn't even look into it or make decisions based off of potential cabinet picks?
I don't think anybody is going to make a specific vote based on a cabinet pick, but I think they put all together, right, this narrative out there that Trump, the dictator on day one, joking, the immigrants are poisoning the blood of Americans, that we're throwing out names like Stephen Miller, like people that people are familiar with, and Tucker and Bannon as high level appointees in a Trump administration. I think that does have an impact on these former Republican voters. The rubric you're going to hear a lot from me talking about are people that voted for Brian Kemp and Raphael Warnock in Georgia, right? So Georgia is going to be this big swing state. Brian Kemp won over Stacey Abrams pretty handily. Warnock won pretty handily. So there's a big group of people that voted for both, and a lot of them are kind of bulwarky type people. People that used to be Republicans voted for Mitt Romney, and now just are too turned off by Trump stuff. I think that type of voter, a Camp Warnock voter, looks at some of this craziness. It's like, no, I might have my problems with inflation, or I might have my problems with Biden's age, or I might, whatever. I might wish that we had more tax cuts, whatever it is. But like, I'm not voting for these lunatics, and so I do think that it will have an impact. And I think you can tell that people around Trump know that it will have an impact by this Wall Street Journal leak that came out after the Axios story, where they're like, you don't have to be scared. You don't have to be scared. Here's that Russ Vaught and
Yeah.
Kevin Hat. Like, here are these white guys you've never heard of.
They're
Like,
just
they're not
some
scary.
old white guys to placate you
Yeah.
into
Yeah, and I think that leak is like it's in the Wall Street Journal. It's literally like we're trying to reach the Wall Street Journal dad in suburban Atlanta who's like not into the dictator stuff, not into the racist stuff, but still likes the tax cuts. Like they're trying to send a signal. You don't have to be scared. You can vote for us. So I do think that even the Trump team recognizes that they're at a little bit of risk here of losing kind of that demographic of Republican type voter that hasn't gone along with Trump.
For those watching, if you do want to learn more about the Bulwark types out there, definitely make sure to subscribe to The Bulwark on YouTube. Tim has a ton of videos that go up on The Bulwark, so it's a great resource there. And for any new viewers to this series now, if you enjoy it, if there's something else you'd like to hear, if you have questions, definitely throw them in the comments here, and we'll do our best to answer them. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Tim Miller.
This is Inside the Right.